Hey everybody, I'm Nick Layton.
And I'm Leah Bottima.
And we're the hosts of Were You Raised by Wolves?
Each week we try to make the world a kinder, nicer place.
Well, that's the idea, at least.
I mean, we try.
Have you ever wondered what to do if you're ghosted?
Or what to do when a friend asks you to borrow money?
Or the proper way to eat Cheetos?
You know, the big questions.
So please find Were You Raised by Wolves wherever you listen.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
HRN is food radio supported by you. Learn more at heritageradionetwork.org.
Gather your friends and family at the second annual Catskill Cuisine Festival, presented by the Sullivan Catskills Visitors Association, Bethel Woods Center for the Arts, and Resorts World Catskills. Mark your calendars for a flavor-packed weekend from May 10th to May 12th. Experience the fusion of phenomenal food and electrifying entertainment. Rub shoulders with your favorite Food Network personalities, including Andrew Zimmern, Michael Simon, Scott Conant, Marcus Samuelson, Jeffrey Zakarian, Anne Burrell, Melba Wilson, and distinguished international chefs by LaBelle Farms. Kick off the festivities with Friday's star-studded golf tournament and evening reception. Saturday heats up with free tastings, thrilling live demos, music, and family activities, culminating with a gourmet dinner hosted by celebrity chefs. And on Sunday, celebrate Mother's Day with a special celebrity-curated brunch. Tickets for this celebration are selling like hotcakes. Visit catskill-cuisine.com to grab your pass for this unforgettable weekend in the picturesque Catskills. See you there!
Welcome to Spill and Dish, a podcast from the Specialty Food Association. Founded in 1952, SFA is the leading trade association and source of information about the $194 billion specialty food industry. We champion the food producers, retailers, and buyers who make up the specialty food world. In this special episode, we are speaking with session speaker at the upcoming Summer Fancy Food Show in New York City, taking place June 23rd through the 25th. Today's guest is Anna Hammond, CEO of Matriark Foods and 2024 SFA Leadership Award winner for Emerging Leader. Matriark Foods is a specialty pasta sauce, broth, and stew maker that upcycles farm surplus and fresh-cut food scraps. The company endeavors to expand access to healthy foods while reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Hammond will be participating in a session titled Discover the Future of Food, Sustainably Specialty with Food Tang, about the 4 pillars of sustainability: human, social, economic, environmental, and how they drive innovation in the specialty food industry. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So, the first question is, how did Matriark Foods come to be?
So I launched Matriark Foods a little over 5 years ago. And before launching Matriark, I built a healthy eating program for youth and families living in public housing in New York City, which is, by number of people living there, technically the 10th largest city in the United States, with a lot of people suffering from diet-related illness and very little access to good quality, healthy food. So we were brokering relationships between farmers in upstate New York to donate their surplus produce. And there was just so much produce extra going to waste, a growing understanding that about the negative effects that food waste has on global warming, a huge need for farmers to have extra income and get paid actually for the food that they grow, harvest, and transport, and then also an enormous need for greater access to healthy food. And so that was part of the inspiration for launching Matriark Foods.
Great. And I know that Matriark Foods is a little bit atypical in that it actively seeks out with food service and food banks rather than going a standard retail route. Can you talk a little bit about that decision?
Yeah. So when we launched the company, really we're looking at how can we make the biggest impact the most quickly. And food service in the United States is where over 50% of meals are eaten. And that's everywhere from K through 12 to food banks to prisons, corporate, college and university, et cetera. And also, when you're selling into food service, even though it takes a long time, once you are selling, you're selling in, cases and pallets as opposed to individual units. So the marketing costs are very different, and sort of how you bring people along very different. So we really, we launched in food service really from an impact perspective to start. And then we sold our first pallet of product the first week of March of 2020. We managed to survive in all kinds of different ways. And we had always planned on having a retail line, but probably, later on in the business. And then a couple of years in when the pandemic was still on, and we needed to really expand our opportunities. One of our advisors and investors who used to also work for Campbell's said, Campbell's is essentially a food service company with a very large retail presence, and maybe now's a good time to kind of build your brand out. So struggled with that decision. For all the reasons that everyone listening and anyone who's ever started a CPG company knows, it is incredibly hard to do and get people to like your product and bring it along. But we did decide to do 3 SKUs of a product that everyone could understand. And when I say that, understanding is such an important piece of it. Climate-friendly food is really, even if it is not a new concept in terms of the way people have farmed and, the way people have upcycled since ancient times, in the contemporary world, it is a new idea. And so bringing the consumer along, we just felt like we wanted to do something that everyone could understand and understand the impact. And so that's why we decided on the tomato sauces, which kind of, hit it right out of the gate. We got picked up by Whole Foods and Fresh Direct. And then we have a third channel of the business, which is emergency food and food banks. And that really comes out of the founding of the business. And last year, 2023, we launched our first product specifically designed for food banks and emergency food. It's a healthy meal in a shelf-stable carton, carbon neutral, sourced from New York State farms, with all the good calories of a healthy meal. So we're really now kind of operating like a mini gigantic company in that we have, 3 really very serious channels of the business. And each one plays a different role, and all of it leads toward impact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Thank you for providing that context. So let's switch over a little bit to discuss the upcoming Summer Fancy Food Show session that you'll be participating in. Is there any topic that you're most excited to speak about?
Yeah, I think that the growing awareness of how the individual consumer can impact in a positive way through their food choices, planetary health, I think is a really exciting topic. It's very, very hard to do, as everyone knows. Bringing people along with anything new takes time. And also when people are spending their hard-earned money on food, they're going to look for value first and flavor obvious. Flavor is always obvious, but climate and other concerns, maybe the third or maybe the fifth thing that they think about. So I'm interested in the topic of, growth of climate-friendly food and consumer engagement with it from kind of an activist perspective. How do we bring more people along? How do we organize and also mobilize? And there's a difference between those two things. Mobilizing is bringing people along who already agree with you. Organizing is bringing along people who might not agree with you, but with whom you can find some common cause. And I think the wonderful thing about food is that everyone eats it. And also most people want their families to be healthy. So I think we have a really unique opportunity to have an enormous impact on planetary health and human health through engaging consumers in their individual choices and how those impact both.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds like it's going to be a riveting session. Thank you. So yeah, a lot of people in the audience are going to be specialty food makers as well. Is there any steps that you recommend specialty food brands should take to incorporate sustainability into their business practices?
There really, there are a number of ways, but I think that, that having data backed certifications is incredibly important because greenwashing is totally a thing, and the contemporary consumer is much smarter than maybe. And it's not like people are smarter, but there's more information out there, so people can become smarter about things in a way that maybe was less easy, a decade ago. And so having a fully transparent supply chain, doing life cycle analyses on your products, for us, also having upcycled certification. I think you really have to be very serious about what you're doing because the consumer is incredibly educated. And that's a good thing. It's a good thing for all of us. And the other thing I guess I would say is, really do it. Go for it. Don't just do one product. Do it for all of your products. Find some way, whether it's, incorporating regenerative ingredients or upcycled ingredients, or, doing life cycle analyses and making different choices about your supply chain. I think that's the advice that I would give.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Looking into the future, what are some practices that you hope specialty food brands will eventually implement into their operations, say in the next 5 to 10 years?
Everyone should be thinking about sustainability as part of their production process. And I don't care what that is. It can be in your ingredients. And like I said, like sourcing closer to where you are, sourcing ingredients that are, verified clean or verified regenerative, doing an upcycled certification and ensuring that you're actually making some impact, making the best packaging choices possible. Packaging is a long discussion, and it's very, very hard to have fully sustainable packaging because food must be safe and must be made in food safe containers. And no one yet has completely cracked how to do that in a really sustainable, fully sustainable way. But I think it's just, you can't be a 21st century food company and not be doing something positive for the environment. Now, I think there's enough consumers who don't know enough or maybe don't completely care about it. But that is going to fade pretty quickly. And the generations to come, will simply not stand for things that aren't sustainable.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like with the data is really showing that people are caring so much more about sustainability. And every year it seems to be a higher and higher on the list of attributes that people think about when they think about not just specialty food, but food in general.
Yeah. And that is a good thing. I mean, that even if right now that isn't driving purchasing as much as we would all like, it will be increasingly driving purchasing, which means that all companies will have to participate in some way. And that actually makes it a really exciting, lively space to be in right now.
Yeah, definitely. So yes, thank you so much. And congratulations once again on receiving the SFA Emerging Leadership Award. So my last question for you is, what does being a leader mean to you, especially in this space?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a, first of all, it was so amazing to receive the award. I was really incredibly surprised and honored, especially since, we're such a new, we're an emerging brand. We haven't been around that long. But I think, being a leader to me, it goes back to the idea of organizing, I guess. It's like bringing people along who might not necessarily agree with you, and bringing people along by finding common cause. And I think that, food is a wonderful place to do that. It's also a necessary place to do it because we all eat. But I think that's really, what being a leader is to me is that. And I've had incredible experience really over the last 5 years working with people from all walks of life, who literally, without exception, all care about their families eating better food, their children having a healthy world to live in. And so, yeah, that's one thing that being a leader means to me, I think.
Thank you so much. So a big thanks to Anna Hammond for joining us today. You can find out more about the show at specialtyfood.com and heritageradionetwork.org. And remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. A special thanks to Heritage Radio Network, the world's pioneer food radio station. This is Spill and Dish, a Specialty Food Association podcast.
Spill and Dish, a Specialty Food Association podcast, is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.
Hi, listeners. We want to tell you about a podcast we're really digging. It's called Christopher Kimball's Milk Street Radio. Every week, they travel the world to find the most fascinating stories about food, including children who harvest cod tongues after school in Norway and a detective who tracks down food thieves. And on Milk Street Radio, you can always find the unexpected. The comedian who ranks apples using an elaborate 100-point system, the secret history of grocery stores, and how to eat your way through Italy. They also interview the most beloved names in food like Jacques Pepin, Sola El-Whaley, Jose Andres, Jet Tila, Ina Garten, Nigella Lawson, and Padma Lakshmi. Plus, co-hosts Christopher Kimball and Sarah Moulton do live calls with listeners and answer their questions about ingredients, techniques, and culinary mysteries. Like, why roasting a leg of lamb made one caller's oven explode? Ever wonder why your bread won't rise or your souffle falls flat? Chris and Sarah have the answers. You'll also hear from a rotating cast of contributors, including Kenji Lopez-Alt, Cheryl Day, Dan Pashman from The Sporkful, and Alex Ainuz, a French guy cooking from YouTube. Take a listen at 177milkstreet.com/radio or just search your podcast app for Milk Street Radio.